Hello. Starting off over here from my page because we're having some sound issues coming from the other side. So I'm just waiting for Amy to hop on here. And there she is. Yay! There's she and Suzanne and Kim.
Yay.
Yay. How's it going now?
It's perfect.
Okay.
Which is crazy. I don't understand why.
I know.
Oh well.
So strange.
Very strange.
I can actually see better with my CVS glasses as opposed to my actual prescription glasses. So who knows what's going on. Hey, Suzanne and Sheila and Kim. Everybody's here. I'm so excited.
Kim, Kat. Hey.
So
Sheila,
long.
Sheila, Suzanne. Yay.
I am pretty excited. So, Amy and I were we were coming from a totally different direction, and we were ready to talk about some different things. But when we were talking about, what we're walking into, and we feel many, many Christians are walking into with this year, things are beginning to become wide open for God's promises to actually come to fruition. But that does not mean that we don't come up against opposition. It doesn't mean that we don't come up against blockages or days where we feel like we might have taken, one step forward and we take 3 steps back. And we started to ponder like how we feel in those situations. And, we started thinking about, reflecting on our whole entire lives. And we think about things that, that have happened that we never, ever thought would happen to us. And how different our reality is now as opposed to when we were much younger, and we used to think about things and how we wanted them to be. And then when we don't see that miracle coming as quickly as we would like it to come, and sometimes quickly can be 10 years for some of us, but it's not something that happens overnight, and sometimes it's not something that happens in 10 years or 20 years. It happens over a lifetime. But when it doesn't come when we want it to, it can be somewhat devastating because we have felt that we have been in that really raw place for way too long. And it can get us down, and it can leave us in a place where sometimes we're afraid to admit how it actually makes us feel. And one of the things that, one of the things that Amy and I were saying last night, and I thought about it, how many times in my life have I said this, that I actually would have rather just said, Jesus, if it's not coming, just take me home. Just take me home. Like, I would rather come home to you than go another minute without you saving me from what I'm up against, or bringing me to a place where I'm in my promise instead of just waiting for it. So that's where we came to last night, and we couldn't get away from that. So, if you caught my post last night, I talked about, we all dream of that moment where we are handed a miracle, our long awaited promise, the moment that we are told, rise and go, your faith has made you well. And many of us feel like we have stuck ourselves into this place. We've dug our heels in with such great faith that promise should be at our door. We should be walking through that door. We want the door to shut on that whole long season of, our most desperate times. And can we expect God to rewrite our story? And, like I said last night, yes, we can. We absolutely can. And he is rewriting our story each and every day. And, it might not seem like it, but if we think about, I talked about if even in our lowest moments, and we're standing at the edge of that Red Sea, we must believe it's going to part. We must believe it. Abraham was up against his 100th birthday. Talk about a Red Sea, you know, and that's when, you know, Sarah gave birth, and they had that child that, you know, they waited so long for. And that can happen for us. It can absolutely happen for us. I think there's one thing that Amy said last night, and I don't even know if this is the exact time that you want to bring it up or not, but I loved your quote from The Matrix. Not really a quote, but an instance of how we feel when we're kind of in this awkward place in the middle, and how we're waiting for, you know, the next door to open.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that we were talking about, when that, you know, when that tension of things gets so intense, and you're just going, oh my gosh, this is just going to break. I wish I didn't really have a hold of this. I wish I wasn't, you know, really looking with my faith eyes at this moment, because it's left me frustrated. It's left me discouraged. And that's when I brought up The Matrix. I said, I wish, you know, you have those moments where you wish that you took that other pill where you could just be blissfully unaware. Yeah. And you know, and it's that frustration. And then, you know, we began to talk about more and more, and, you know, and I just, as we were talking today, you know, the Lord just kind of gave me some revelation. And I think we've touched on this before, you know, how, you know, we are his children, and he gave us every emotion that we experience. And he steps back and he lets us process through those emotions. He is not offended at us going, what the heck is going on here? You said this, and, you know, why isn't this happening? How many more hoops do I have to jump through? You know, I mean, I'm just being real. I mean, how many of us have said that? How many of us are willing to admit that we've said that? You know, what else am I missing? What else do I need to do? You know, I've been resting, I've been trusting, I've been praying, I've been fasting, doing this, and this, and this, and this, you know, and then you're going, what else? You know, what else is in the process that I'm missing? And so, you know, he lets us have our tantrum, so to speak, you know, like a child would. And I began to look at that today, and I'm like, you know what, that we are his children. And what are children's perspectives? They're very limited. Children's perspectives are limited, and they have their fit, their tantrum, their misunderstanding because of their perspective of what the situation it is that they're looking at. And then, like a good parent does, they allow them, say, okay, I understand why you're upset about this situation, but let me explain to you the bigger picture. And I think that when we hit this brick wall, so to speak, of why isn't it happening yet? You know, that the Lord, once we quiet ourselves again, and we say, okay, what am I supposed to learn again and some more? Then the Lord says, here's a bigger perspective. Here is a little bit bigger of a picture to help you understand this is why it hasn't happened just yet. And, you know, and it's all the readying, and it's not going to be a forever until the day you die process. There will be a moment where you are going to walk into that vision and that dream that he's given you. He's not given you a purpose to just flounder around in this life hoping for. It's just not that way. He's not that way. He is a good father, and he doesn't withhold things to torture us. You know, he just knows the best time that it is to present it to us. And so that's really, you know, where he's kind of had me today, of, you know, just trusting and remembering that we only see in part. And that's right, Sheila. He's not dangling a carrot in front of us. It's not that carrot that we're never going to get to taste. He's not that way.
Right.
That's how the enemy works. The enemy works that way. The enemy gets you to think and to believe, I'm never going to get to taste that carrot. And how, depressing, how sad, how frustrating that is to be chasing after that carrot and never get to taste. That is not our daddy. It's just not. And so when that thing doesn't happen, and when we don't experience this this specific section of our purpose when we think we should, it does get frustrating. And but when you do remember, you're maturing, you're growing. Okay, I need my perspective widened. And then when the perspective gets widened, then you're like, okay, I need to learn this. I need to understand this better. And I began to, I don't know if any of you guys are fans of the Marvel, Avengers movies and stuff. I was kind of journaling a little bit, and I was journaling about just certain things that the Lord, just kind of speaks over our lives and the weight of it, because everything that he speaks has weight to it, right? It's not just some off the cuff remark. Everything he speaks has life, it has purpose, it has weight to it. And I was just kind of talking about, these prophetic words that have been spoken to me, over me, through scripture and all this stuff. And he began to like it. He brought me back to this, sorry, I'm stumbling, but he brought me back to this scene in the last Avengers movie, the Infinity War. And it was the scene where the character Thor is talking to the Guardians of the Galaxy. And he was talking about getting this new hammer made. And they were like, he was talking about what it does and all this stuff. And the Guardians of the Galaxy said, oh, well, don't you think we should all get one of those? And he says, just the weight of it, your bodies would crush underneath of it. I'm paraphrasing because I'm not good at quoting, but basically he was saying that if any of you held that weapon, your bodies wouldn't be able to handle the weight of it. And that is, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, that's it. That is it. He's preparing us. He's strengthening us to be able to handle the weight of the weapon, the word, the promise. I don't even like saying promises with God anymore, because everything he speaks is covenant. It's unbreakable covenant. It's Amen. Not even this waffly promise thing that we toss around so often. He's really kind of been hitting me hard with that today too. But he's preparing us. And so why would we get frustrated being prepared to handle the weight of the promise, the weight of the purpose that he's setting on us when we don't get it right away? We all want to go to the gym, and the minute we walk on the treadmill for 15 minutes, we want to be 50 pounds lighter. That's right. That's my wish every time I walk in, but it's not going to happen. It's a process. And we can only hold what he has prepared us for. Yes.
I think the hardest part is that, we've all waited, and we know what it's like to wait. We're trained to wait since we're little. We're waiting, for Christmas to come. We're waiting for the last day of school. We're waiting for school to start. We're waiting, till we get a boyfriend. We're waiting for our first job, all these things. We're waiting and waiting all through our lives for these different things. So we know what waiting is. But I think the hardest thing is that when the enemy comes up against us in our waiting with one more blow, and tries to take us back to those days of desperation. I have felt like I have gone through some of the worst things of my lifetime, say in the last 5 years, 10 years, and it's been very, very difficult, that I have felt that I've been on the other side of that now for a few years, that maybe I would be coming out and there would be no more opposition. And it's like when you literally feel like you're on the brink of, stepping into all of those promises, into his covenant with you that he made, that we just get more and more opposition. And that's when we are like, we just want one swift and final blow to take out the enemy, level the playing field. And we want the ease of walking into all of this undefeated. But unfortunately, we're in this very defeated place. You know, it feels like a steamroller is barreling full speed ahead of us, ready to flatten us, rather than the fact that we are filled up, ready to go. We literally feel like we're going to get flattened. And all we can, as I started to think about this last night, all I could see was being from the vantage point of being wheeled off of a field on a stretcher. And I started to think about how much we feel like complete failures, when we have been, left in this place where it doesn't seem anything has changed or ever will change. We feel disgraced and we can barely lift our head, let alone lift our eyes. And when I say that, it's like we've been walking around for how long now? I've always had a relationship with God my whole entire life, but I've been literally very vocal, more and more so over the last 10 years, every time. And the more vocal I get, it seems the more I come up against this opposition, and you feel disgraced sometimes because people are going, it's a joke. People from the outside, you feel like they're looking at us like, what you're doing is a joke. You're saying one thing, you're believing in one thing, but yet all you have is stuff coming against you, and we're thinking that we're so defeated. And I started to sit in that, and I was trying to think of how I want to put this. We need to take in exactly what truly is happening. That when you are wheeled off of a field, when you've been taken out, no one's laughing. No one's really making fun. No one's booing. We're not disgraced. As we're carried off, wounded and battered and beaten, there's honor that's given there. What happens when you're wheeled off of a field? People typically stand and cheer, and there's a respect that's given with just the fact that you've made it off the field. I just really started to think about that. And I started to think, we focus on the fact that we didn't experience a victory. We didn't make that goal. We didn't get the higher score. But the victory that other people are seeing is just the pure fact that we made it off the field, that we're still breathing, we're still living, and we're still carrying on. And we will come right back to that field. We'll get right back into that game. And we will go right back after that enemy and say, no, this is not where it ends. I don't stop here. This isn't my final game. And that's what I picture. I just picture, we often think that people are mocking us and making fun of our faith. And I think that's where I kind of get stuck in, because I know, in my experiences, sometimes people think I'm a little bit of a Fruit Loop. They don't understand hearing from God and how much he speaks to us in our daily lives. And they don't understand how present he actually is when you've opened up yourself to allow his presence in your life. And I think once they see you wheeled off that field and they see you come back and play this game again and again and again and again, because you're not willing to give up, they begin to notice your God. They begin to question, how do you do that? How do you keep coming back for more, even when life keeps coming against you? And then it begins to give them the hope and they start to believe in their promises, and they start to have more faith. And isn't that the whole purpose to all of this?
Yeah.
You know, and we could simply say, oh, purpose in our pain, but it was just literally like I just really started to picture what it's like to be an athlete that's wheeled off of the field.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that's how I feel right now. One
Yeah.
step forward, 3 steps back, beaten down, you know, carried off, wounded, injured, you know, but I'm not giving up.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's why he gave me that vision. Was it yesterday, the day before yesterday, of that lighthouse being battered by the storm and the waves, and yet the light from the lighthouse colliding with that storm created a way to see the rainbow. And you know, the rainbow has been a covenant reminder of the Lord, what he spoke to Noah. You know, the storms may come, but the light within us is going to shine brighter, and we're going to stand firm. We're going to feel the hits of those waves. We're going to, you know, even feel maybe that we're being eroded away, that our foundations are getting crumbly along the edges of that rock face. But the light within us shining, reflecting off the waters of the storms, is going to create that rainbow, that spectrum, to see his perfection and his beauty and his promises in the midst of it all. And you know, I was studying actually in Noah about, you know, after the flood and the Lord's covenant to him, and there was a process before the flood waters receded. I'm not going to preach on all of that, but the one thing that stood out to me was in verse, I've got to read my notes here, my chicken scratch. There was a period of time where the ark came to rest on top of Mount Ararat. And the meaning of Mount Ararat is curse reversed. So after the storm, after the flood, I mean, we know what the flood was, and I'm not going to focus on that, but after that storm, after the flood, the ark came to rest, but they still couldn't see any land. So the ark was resting on land that you couldn't see yet. That mountain meant curse reversed. And then, you know, then began the, you know, the raven flying out, checking, you know, coming back, going out, you know, being sent out, coming back, and all that. And then that period of time where the waters did recede enough to see the land. And, you know, I just think each time we get hit with a flood, each time we get hit with a storm, that the Lord brings us to that place of rest where we sit there and go, you know what? No, I'm not repeating my past. I'm not taking these steps backwards. But, you know, like I said, I mean, I can't imagine them not complaining during the midst of that storm. I can't, you know, imagine them just being like, oh, this is just so wonderful, you know, trapped in this boat full of all these stinky animals. And, you know, it couldn't have been easy at all. But then they rested. They came to a place where they were at rest, and then, you know, the rainbow and all of that. And, you know, those 7 colors of the rainbow are just perfection. And it just, you know, that's kind of where I was at with that.
I think one of my favorite things that you've talked about this week was that whole raven thing, because so often we think, you know, it was just the dove and stuff like that. And, you know, when you go into it with a different perspective, it becomes a little more raw and real, the circumstances. And
well, you know, and with Elijah, you know, he had ravens, and, you know, Elijah was being hidden. He was being hidden by a brook, but the Lord commanded ravens to bring him bread and meat in the morning and at night. And this was a continual thing. And, you know, so even in our hiddenness, you know, the Lord provides substance. You know, he wasn't providing water. He wasn't providing milk. He was providing bread. Now, what does bread represent? You know, and then meat. This was not, you know, weak substance that Elijah was being fed by these birds. And I just feel like there are some times where we have to be hidden away in this process, in this frustration, so that we can be fed some meat, giving us that perspective, giving us that that revelation of where we really are. Again, that perspective shift, but you know, the more mature child perspective, because you know, as you grow, as you age, your perspective gets wider and wider. And so when you are eating on that substance and allowing that revelation to come, allowing yourself to be hidden, you know, that didn't last for very long for Elijah. And then he was sent to that town for the widow and her husband, or her son, to take care of. And that was, you know, that's a whole nother story. So yeah, that's right, Lisa, until the brook dried up. So, I mean, there's always, you know, I've said it for a long time, and I know I've said it on here multiple times, you know, there's always purpose. There's purpose in everything for our purpose. And, you know, that includes the good, that includes the bad and the ugly. And I do have noticed that as the Lord has matured me, my temper tantrums aren't as frequent. And, you know, I submit a little bit quicker in the midst of my temper tantrums. But I'm also willing to admit that I still have them sometimes, you know, and I think that's the real meat of it, right? Is willing to sit there and go, you know what, it is perfectly okay for me to not understand this right now. It's perfectly okay for me to be frustrated, right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, he is not fazed by our emotions, our frustrations, because, you know, like I said earlier, he is a good daddy, and he will come and, you know, sit with you in the midst of it. Yeah. Hidden away. Yep. It does, Lisa. Perfection happens in the purpose. I'm sorry. I didn't want to miss some of these comments while I was talking, and I didn't know if you had something else to add to that, Anne Marie.
No, I was just thinking of, you know, I came across, he's had me in the Psalms almost this whole month. And in Psalms 145, you know, it says, the Lord always keeps his promises. He is gracious in all he does. The Lord helps the fallen and lifts those bent beneath their loads. And that made me think of earlier when you were saying, you know, how heavy it is that we would not even be able to carry it. And he helps us carry it. And he reminds us that, you know, of that so many times throughout the entire Bible. And it's just in almost every psalm, it talks about him, you know, carrying that load for us in one way or another. And then just something else that you said, and I had read it earlier, and then it just came to me in a different light. The eyes of all look to you in hope. You give them their food as they need it. And that food can be, you know, that wisdom, that knowledge, that growth, or what it is that we need. You know, he's feeding us what we need at that time, and he'll continue to do that until we have the strength from what it is that he's feeding us to be able to carry our what it is that he's given us to carry.
Yeah. And, you know, I think if this is something he's really been laying on me pretty heavy, is the weightiness of his words. And every time I sit and meditate on it, it absolutely just, I fall apart. I'm completely wrecked by it, because when you really dig into it, everything he speaks has weight, and it has life, and it has purpose. I know I kind of breezed over that statement earlier, but there's so much truth to it, because You know, the first spoken word that we know of in our Bible is let there be light, and boom, there was light.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke life into every single one of us, and boom, there was life. But in that life, there was purpose. You know, he had me back on Psalm 139 and verses 13 through 16. I began to read it as though he was speaking it to me. And I'm just going to read it to you how he had me write it down. It says, I knit you together in your mother's womb. In my eyes saw your unformed body. All the days ordained for you were written in my book before one of them came to be. Which says to me that everything that he has spoken into my life, into my body, not a darn thing can change that, you know? And then my eyes kind of followed it down to verse 23. You know, and I've always kind of giggled about Psalms because I absolutely love the Psalms. I read through the Psalms, you know, at least once a year because you always get something different out of it. But anyone, you know, kind of reading, you know, you see David, a man after God's own heart, and you see him, you know, dancing, you know, unashamed, you know, before the Lord, and then you see him just falling apart and, oh God, where are you? And I'm like, that I can so relate, you know. I think we can all relate. Like one minute we're like, where are you at? And oh yeah, you're so awesome. So anyway, my eyes kind of went down to verse 23. And it said, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. And he just kind of said to me, I know, you know, I know your heart already. I already know your heart. I already know your anxious thoughts. I'm just waiting for you to invite me into it in that moment. Are you having an anxious thought? Invite me into it. Are you feeling convicted about being offensive in some way? Invite me in. I'll show you. You know, if we're trying to grow and we're trying to expand our vision, we also have to be willing and open to, you know, that correction. And he does it ever so gently.
Yeah.
And he loves us through it. And, you know, it just, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to touch on the weightiness of his words. And, you know, there's that whole, that law of first mention, if you guys know about that, and just how if you go through the Bible and you look at the first time this was mentioned in the Bible, and it gives you a completely different meaning, or a broader meaning of this, that, and the other. He started talking to me about that, not just in the Bible, but he began to speak to me about it. What's the law of first mention in your life, Amy? I spoke your life into being, Psalm 139. When was that law of first mention of salvation for you? And immediately when I thought about my salvation, yes, I thought about it when I was 6 and I got baptized. I had to convince my parents I was ready to be baptized at that age. But really, when I really grasped a hold of it was when I was 19. And that was an unforgettable moment. Law of first mention is always, where did I write that down? Because it was just so, it just kind of wrecked me. I wanted to make sure I read it correctly. That all of our laws of first mention, the first thing that we remember of God and what he's spoken to our lives, it's been impactful and unforgettable. And if it's unforgettable for us, how much more unforgettable is it for him when he is our creator? He is the one that spoke that life over us, that purpose over us. So, you know, at 19, that was impactful and unforgettable, forever changed my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I've had,
Roxanne.
Hi, Roxanne. And I've had those moments from that point forward where I've had those mentions, those weighty words that he's spoken to me, some audible things. Like only a couple of times I've had the actual audible voice of God with,
Yeah.
just speak over me. And one time it was my car, I had to pull over because I just fell apart. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just audibly spoke to me. And I was in the middle of just crying out to him, like, God, what am I supposed to be doing? Another one of these conversations. What am I supposed to be doing? What have you called me to do? And he just spoke. And I had to pull the car over. And, he just does that. And I guess I felt the weightiness of that to share with you guys. For you guys, I don't even think any of you are going to have to write it down. I think it's just going to come to mind. What are some of those first mentions in your life where the Lord really just spoke, where he just showed up, where, like I've said in a lot of my battles, there have been times in my life where he's made himself so real. There's no way I can deny him. There's no way that I can doubt. Now, I have moments of my doubts of this, that, and the other, but no doubt. There's no doubt in the weightiness of his word and the fact that there is purpose on my life. And I just need to trust him to unfold that.
Well, and I think that's what brings us back around. Like Sheila's just saying, I confess I took my eyes off him and onto my circumstances this week. And that's exactly where we're coming from, Sheila. Like,
yeah,
so have we. Amy and I've been there. We were there yesterday. We were there a week ago. We were there a month ago. It happens all the time to us. But because we've had those first mentions, those things that have caught our attention, that we cannot deny that he's in our lives, it always brings us back to him.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to keep our focus, is that we always come back to him. We haven't just denied him and said, that's it. We no longer have faith. We no longer believe. We have experienced him to the point that there's absolutely no denying it. We might take our eyes off of him for a moment. We might take our eyes off of him for a day, but or a week, but they always return to him in one way or the other. And, that's where this week we were talking about, we feel like things are getting ready to align, but then the enemy turns around and he has us believing that the worst case scenario is going to happen. And suddenly you're taken, instead of suddenly being delivered into your promise, you're suddenly being taken to, for me, it's like watching, 10 years ago repeat itself, and I'm almost envisioning different things happening, and they're not even really truly happening. And they're never going to happen that way again, because he's strengthened me in a way to carry these things to a point that they will never crush me.
Yeah.
They will never crush me again like they tried to crush me 10 years ago. Even if the same thing came back on me, whether it would be financial or anything like that, it's not going to crush me this time, because I have a different vantage point of my view of how I see it. And his miraculous nature showing up in those moments before give me the hope. Even when I take my eyes off, when my eyes return, my hope returns, and I see it ending differently. I see it ending in his way. And I think that's where I wrote, he always alters the outcome to our advantage. God has plans for us, plans to prosper. He always alters the outcome to our advantage.
Yep. Amen.
We can be crushed on all sides, and still that is a totally different legacy of a victory that we can pass along, because we're showing that we can survive it.
Amen.
You know, I think back to being at shock trauma and a person saying to me, you know, after that, how how did you even keep your faith when your parents were in that car accident and you lost your father? You know, I would have lost my faith in that moment. And I think, you know, that was when I was crushed on all sides, you know, but there was victory in that because I didn't lose my faith, you know, and that's something that's passed along to my children. It's something that's passed along to anybody that's witnessed it, you know, and it's just one more. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just, it's victory. It's victory in every small portion, second moment of our life, even when our eyes go away from him. And I just keep being drawn back to what Sheila said. Even when our eyes are taken away because our circumstances are boldly screaming in our face, there's such a victory. And when our eyes return to him.
Yeah.
And that's what, you know, that those victories can be the most powerful victories for others to witness. They're not seeing the big turnaround in our lives. They don't know this has happened and she needs this to happen. You know, they're just witnessing these smaller things. And I think that that's sometimes the small stuff's the big stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree. I think those small, quiet and private battles probably have the more weighty victories because you're not, you know, you're not out there broadcasting all your dirty laundry and asking everyone to come in and help you out and all this. You're just really like, Lord, this is just you and me, man. I am trusting you.
mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not out there blabbing to everybody. I just need you because you are the only one that can handle this. I can't even handle it. So how can anybody else handle it? So I just need you to take care of it. And I just think, you know, each of those, you know, I think sometimes we just feel like we get the wind knocked out of us.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the enemy might have, you know, this little victory dance and we might catch it sometimes, but really at the end of it, we know like, dude, you just haven't even done anything. You might have knocked the wind out of me for a moment, but a moment isn't a lifetime. A moment isn't a day. A moment doesn't mean anything when you've got, you know, that grace and that peace that just washes over you, even in the midst. I mean, you know, I've had several days where I've just felt so just bleh, you know, I mean, I don't even have a word for it. But even in the midst, I would just have these waves of peace just hit me like, I've got this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I know that you're feeling this way. I know that you're frustrated. I know that you're angry and all this stuff, but I've got this. I've
Mm-hmm.
got this. And it's in those moments where, you know, you're done venting and all of this stuff and you just say, God, I trust you. I have to trust you because everything else doesn't make sense to me. My reality does not make sense to me based on what you have shown me, what you have given me in my dreams, what you've given me in my visions, what you've spoken to me in prophetic words, just you and me. That seems and feels and looks so much more real to me than what I'm looking at when I open my eyes in the morning. I mean, that is just, that's where what's that scripture where you set your face as flint? I mean, you got to put your face down and go, God, I can't even look ahead of me right now because I cannot deal with this. I don't have the strength.
Yeah.
I don't have the know-how. Only you can deal with this. Only you can handle this. Only you can put my mind on these people's thoughts. Only you can handle this situation. Only you can bring the miracle because I can't manifest it on my own. I mean, I don't know who I'm prophesying over to here because I kind of feel like I'm prophesying over myself. But I mean, but that's what it is. I mean, you just gotta like, now, Lord, I know that you are the only one that can handle this. And so I'm done complaining. I'm done crying
Yes.
because those tears have not been wasted, Lisa. Those tears are not wasted. They were seeds, and they're going to reap a massive harvest of joy. Because here's the thing, that joy, it comes when you do things on your own. You feel proud, you feel happy and joyful over something that you've been able to do and accomplish, but it does not even compare to the joy that comes when your miracle comes, when that answered prayer comes, when you step into that moment and you're looking around and you're going, I did not do this.
Yeah. Sheila said, when we fall, the enemy sure likes to lie and make us feel all alone. And, you know, that was huge. Last night, Sheila, Amy said, oh, I need to stop talking. You know, I'm just in like not in a positive place. And I said, no, I need to hear this because I was feeling like I'm the only one processing current circumstances like that. I'm the only one that's dealing with this, you know, and it felt so good to have somebody else understand exactly where, you know, I was coming from. And I think that's the biggest thing, you know, the more we go through this and the more we surround ourselves with like-minded people, that we do realize that there is that support out there. And, you know, Amy and I've been always very raw and real with each other since the beginning. And she would tell you it's been 4 years, but it's actually only been 2.5. Sorry. That's actually a real conversation. But it's, you know, we're not alone when it comes down to that, but we often, I actually wrote that down. So often we feel alone. We are so intent on the situation at hand that we block out everything around us. We think that we've been abandoned, left behind, forgotten. Yet there are often many others that are feeling the exact same way that we are. And we miss that in our anguish, you know. And I think if we start to become more raw and real, and we start to vocalize things, you know, it was like last night when Amy didn't want to, she didn't want to burden me probably with it, but it wasn't burdening me. It was helping me. And I think in the end, it drew both of us out of it. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, by the time we were done talking back and forth, we had some pretty good joking going back
Yeah.
and forth too. So, you know, Sheila, you're not alone. Anybody else out there, you're not alone. And I think that's the hardest part. And I think we do have we might think that for a moment or a day, but I think as long as we're continue treading that water, that we actually see that we're not. You know, I think that was one of the hardest parts when Marty's faith wasn't as big as it is now. And he felt so desperately alone in his depression, you know, like literally like no one was around. And I kept going, but I'm right here. But you're just so far in that you don't see that. And I think, you know, once you experience that time alone, and God's brought you out on the other side, that you truly know that you're not. The enemy tries to trick you, tries to make you believe that you are. But, you know, I think we're much quicker to realize that we're not. And we begin to speak out the situations at hand. And that's, you know, in a way, part of our warring against it. Because when you bring others in, you're much stronger. That scripture is the scripture of the day, I think, because we went to last night. I think you were already asleep, Amy, but that I was going to say, wow, when two are stronger than, that's one of my favorite scriptures, and I can't do it right now.
When two or more are gathered, is that
no,
one?
not that one, but
two I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just completely drew a blank.
Yes.
Um,
So I'm
yeah,
kind of
there's a lot
rambling.
of truth. There's so much truth to that, because the enemy does want you to think that you're on your own. He
Thank you,
does
Sheila.
want you to feel like things are not going to change, that you're going backwards and all of this stuff. And I was, I was thinking about, like I was saying to Amory, like, I just didn't want to be negative, because that's just not in my nature.
Yeah.
I'm just not a negative person. Not anymore anyway. um, and it just, I didn't want to be speaking that frustration. That's why I was like, oh, I just need to I'm not in a good way right now. I need to just shut it down. But, but Anne Marie saying, no, I needed to hear that. I needed that. And it was like, okay, it's okay.
Validation.
It was a validation. It was like, no, it's okay. We can do this. And I think, so many of us have been put in this light where it's like a fear thing, like, oh, you can't discuss how hard life is when you're a Christian. Well, you know what? You should discuss it. You should discuss it, because I mean, we have to be real. You have to be honest about every aspect of life. And so if we can just rip off that whole like fear thing, that fear of man, fear of judgment, fear of whatever, because that's really what it is. It's being afraid that, oh, maybe maybe she doesn't have her stuff together. Maybe she's not, as spiritual or wise as I thought she was, and blah, blah, blah. I mean, who cares? Who cares? I would rather someone label me as real than some super spiritual freak of nature who never has any problems. That's just me. Some people don't want people knowing that they struggle with things. To each his own. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, you can't be afraid to just, you've got to have those friends that will let you sit there, that will sit there with you and let you fall apart, because we have those moments. And if you can do that with your friends, then you visually have that reality of, no, you're not alone. So then that lie doesn't get to hit, right? And you come out of it faster. Like Anne Marie was saying, once we got done just kind of talking about these questions and just these emotional things that we were processing through, then we were back to ourselves. We were joking. We were like, I'm good now. It's all good. It wasn't like this long drawn out, week long, month long process. I mean, we just kind of were both like, and then we're good.
Yes. Well, when Lisa was just saying, yes, we need to bring in others to help us stand in the storm. It's so funny. Just as that came up in the thread, I pictured, I don't know why, but like men in one of those little rowboats back in the like colonial days, and the one like with the telescope.
Yeah.
One standing up there with that and looking out to see, what's coming and what's going around them. Someone else is, rowing. Someone else is guiding the boat. Like, you have all of these people doing something different. You need that support around you, and each person's doing a different thing that will help bring each one of you out of it and get you all to the place that you need to be. And you do need each other. But that's what I pictured. Just yes, Lisa Zabrowski, humble, real people are much more appealing. Marty and I have a joke. Someone once told me that they knew some pretty bad hardships that we were going through back when we experienced some unemployment, and they like stood there and said, well, we had a plan, and it's just like, good. I didn't. I never had a plan. I'm like one of the most organized people. Like, I had 17 plans. I had backups for the backups for the backups. None of them worked out. Sorry. That's when God said, it's not your plan, it's mine. you know. But I can honestly say I would much rather be me, having gone through this disruption of my plans and have the relationship that I have with God, than to just be cluelessly going through life believing that my plan was the ultimate plan. It's the one that actually worked. I want God's plan, even if it
Yeah.
takes me through, you know, some storms. It's made me better. You know, I
Well,
absolutely wouldn't change, you know, some of the hardships I've faced, because it's made life more real. I wouldn't change, you know, the different times that he's shown up, the audible voice, the signs that he gives us. You know, I wouldn't want to live a life without that.
well, and when you get down to the real hard truth of it all, the nuts and the bolts, like the more opposition, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not frustrating and irritating. I mean, our conversation tonight, clearly we have those moments, but it really should be, this is confirmation. This is confirming that, you know, the enemy, the principalities of darkness don't want me stepping into this next thing. Like, I mean, I was to the point where, like, do we really, you know, should we just say we're not going to do a live broadcast?
No.
Like, the enemy wants me quiet, you know. I don't think I would have anything good to say. You know, and it was that, no, we can't be silent. And that's when the Lord just, you know, I know we had that conversation for a purpose, and the Lord is like, no, I want you speaking. And, you know, so this is, you know, another way to combat. Like, you want me quiet? Okay, I'm going to start talking. You want me to feel frustrated? Okay, well, I'm just going to be happy and at peace, and not, you know, taking that matrix pill to be blissfully unaware, but taking the other one, knowing what the reality is and learning how to fight against it.
Mm-hmm.
Learning how to take the enemy system down.
You know, and you just need those people around you that can pull you out, and it can always be in different ways, because I know sometime in my negative place, you know, if you ever experience a personal conversation with Amy, she's just amazing at finding laughter. She can find laughter anywhere, and it makes me smile when I hear it, even when I'm in the worst mood ever. If she's on the other end laughing at herself, usually, you know, I'm like cracking up, because you can't listen to laughter and not smile, you know. Or I can tell when she's upset and I get a yep. And I'm like, what? I can't even remember what I said back to that this morning.
That was short.
I said that was enthusiastic. Yep.
Yeah,
That was enthusiastic. But, you know, it can be sarcasm, it can be laughter, it can be a million different things. But, you know, the joy is a powerful weapon, Lisa.
Yes.
And, yes. Sometimes we all need to take that little joy ride. Wink, wink.
And Karen had posted that scripture for us, from him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. Yeah, I love that. And I think that that's such a comfort, though, too, you know, knowing that, okay, I'm just like this little tiny bone here, and I've got all these awesome ligaments around me, and, you know, we all get to do all of that together. And I think my sarcastic comment last night was, now that you got to hear the growl, or what I say, the cat growl or something like that, and I need to just stop. Then you're like, no, I need this, and I'm like,
I know,
negativity.
And I was like,
you need my venting.
I have a picture of the sloth that delivered our promise.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I
It was
think the
good.
sloth is carrying in our promise.
Well, and I'll tell you something. Here's the, this is back to the whole, the opposition being our confirmation.
Yeah.
Is that over the weekend, I had really gotten a massive download from the Lord of just something that he's really been trying to help me articulate. And then of course this week has been a little distracting. But it was very revelatory to me, and it just had left me just kind of undone for, a day or two. And then I got on I was on an intercessory phone call, and someone had prophesied over me, and it was just so much confirmation. And I was just so overwhelmed with just joy and like, oh my gosh, I say this all the time. It doesn't have to come right after a prophetic word, but just overwhelmed with God's goodness and how he loves to just confirm all the things that he speaks to us in so many ways. And I was just overwhelmed with his goodness. I had this like permagrin on my face, and then all of a sudden the week hit, and it was just like, I told Anne Marie, I think it was Tuesday, I said, I feel like I just got the crap beat out of me. Like I've literally felt like I got hit on all sides. And I'm like, where did that come from? And it was just, anything to get the fire to diminish, anything to get the silence to hit, anything to get the joy from being grabbed a hold of, you know what I mean? And he may have succeeded a little bit for about a day. And then, it just, okay, yeah, thank you, Sheila. That's the word I was looking for. Just blindsided. And he does kind of come out of nowhere sometimes. But that next play, he doesn't get to blindside you anymore, right? You've got prefer. Feel like I just felt like we needed to talk about this very real battle, this very real thing that not a lot of people are willing to talk about, to just encourage you guys to just, the whole thing with the ark, the only windows were up at the top. So the only thing they could see was the sky. The only way their eyes could be directed was up. So, I'm not going to go into that whole teaching, but it's an incredible teaching by Joseph Prince about how the ark, how they were sealed in by the hand of God, and the only windows were to keep their eyes directed up. And I think even in the midst of even, feeling like you're underneath that pile of players on the field and you're just crushed on all directions, there's still a way that you can look up. And he's going to have those people that come in with you and say, let me help you up. You can complain that it hurts, and it's okay. And, we're going to get you strengthened and back out on the field. And you're not delayed. You haven't delayed anything in your moment. Because, like we titled this, the Lord will rewrite it. He redeems. He is the redeemer. Right. So this day that I had where I felt like I got the wind knocked out of me, he's redeeming that. He's redeeming that time. He's rewriting that day and redeeming it. And his redemption and his restoration is always better than it was before. So now that I've gone through this battle, I'm going to be better than I was before it, more prepared to go, further and stronger to hold the weight of it all. So I love everything that you guys are saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to catch it all. Yeah, Suzanne, I've been doing the same thing. I've been going back through the prophetic words, even if I'm not exactly feeling like it, I've still been reading them, because there was power and weight in
Mm-hmm.
those words, and they were specifically for you. Um, yeah, exactly, Kimmy. You know, and you need to, here's what I've been doing. I won't just sit and silently read them. I will read them out loud so that my
Yeah.
voice is carrying those words into the room that I'm sitting in. And the other day, I want to say maybe it was Tuesday, no, Wednesday, Monday or Wednesday. I can't remember. I mean, Anne Marie and I have been friends for 20 years now. I can't tell time. Um, no, I had my little packet of, I've got them all shoved into my Bible, all written down, like little scratch notes and stuff. And I started carrying them around the house. And I just started like declaring them like they were declared over me. I just started reading them out loud. I'm like, everybody is going to hear my prophetic words over my life, my victory, this, that, and the other. It's going to, if they're in my house, which they're not allowed in my house, they're going to flee. And, you know, and it helped me too, because I think sometimes when you just read it silently, yeah, it can soak in, and yes, it can really speak to you. Yes, it can move you. But in that moment on that day, I needed to hear it again. I needed to hear my voice speak those words. And I'm telling you, it started doing something for
We're
me.
told to declare a thing and it will be
Yes.
ours.
Yes. You don't
Declare
get to
it.
declare it in your mind. You've got to speak it. I mean,
Speak it
there's,
out.
you know, the whole, I mean, I know we've talked about this before too, just the frequency of your voice does stuff in, you know, sound and in that spirit realm. I mean, it rattles and shakes and moves things that have maybe tried to come in and hover over, you know, like a dark cloud. Your voice is like that wind that clears it out. And
well, wasn't it
so
last
if
month?
you don't feel like it, still do it.
Wasn't it last month? Lisa Perna, we were in that conversation and she said, just tell an angel what you need. Just speak it out loud. And like so often I'll go to sleep and as I'm falling asleep in my mind, I'm talking, send angels to protect us, do this, do that. And I found myself this past month saying it out loud in my bed as I turn the lights out and asking them to do certain things. And lo and behold, the very first time that Lisa said, just tell them what you need and tell them to go get it for you. The next thing I know, lo and behold, the church calls and gives us exactly what we needed out of the blue. And it wasn't just somebody, it was a church.
Yep.
So it was really kind of cool. And so then I've been doing that every night, like speaking it out loud. And there's been such a change in the atmosphere of my home. Just, you know, we go around, we bless the home frequently, just different people coming and going and things like that, where, you know, we're blessing the home, we speak things out loud, we declare. But like, you know, to do that and then to start calling them in and asking them, you know, for the protection out loud, it just felt more like I'm declaring a thing, I'm asking a thing, I'm speaking it out loud. And, you know, it just felt so much more powerful. So we've definitely been doing that, you know, real quick. Yes, we do need to partner with angels. I wanted to say, I meant to say this back at the beginning, but I wanted to thank everyone for being so patient with us about us having this break of live broadcast, because a lot of it was on my end. You know, we've been dealing with a lot. Marty's parents are actually going to be moving in with us. So we've been very, very busy between work and preparing for them to come and stay with us. And with the holidays, I didn't want to miss the holidays with my girls and with my family. We had some special family coming in from out of town. So I wanted to make sure I was doing that, but I also wanted to make sure that I was spending time in God's word and being able to carry the weight of so many different things changing and happening for us, because things can go one day from being like really you looking at it from one vantage point, you're like, this is amazing stuff that's happening. But if you look at some of the stuff from another vantage point, depending on how you wake up on another day, you know, it can be kind of overwhelming. You know, with them moving in, I need to make space for storage, and I'm like throwing stuff of out that I need to like stare at before I throw it away. And I'm like having to throw it away without even getting to look at it. And tears are flying. I think my girls have seen me cry more times. Mom, it'll be okay. Take a picture of it, throw it away. I'm like, I can't throw it away. You touched it once. No. So I'm rambling a little bit there, but I'm just very appreciative that people have stuck by us. You know, I definitely needed that time to focus on God, His promises, my family, you know, and some very important things so that life didn't pass by too quickly. And that's the whole reason that we're doing this, to not miss out, to enjoy the blessings of parents while we have them, and enjoy family and enjoy quiet time with God.
Yeah, he is, Lisa. He's definitely redeeming the time, you know. And I think when you give your time to him to do everything that he's called you to do, because he's first called us his child, you know, and then he has purposed us to be spouses, to be parents, you know, that always needs to be top priority. And I think when we constantly are saying, you know, direct us, guide us, let us be a good steward of our time, and keep priorities right. You know, like this whole time, Anne Marie was like, I'm so sorry. I know we need to be doing this. I'm like, we don't need to be doing it. I'm totally fine with it. You know, I'm, you know, I'm needing my quiet time and this, that, and the other. And, you know, and I think, you know, the Lord just, he honors the fact that you honor time, that it's a gift. You know, we know better than anybody how much a gift time is.
Yes.
And when you take advantage and steward that well, that he honors that. And any time that you've felt that you've lost because of other people or other situations trying to steal it, he comes in and he just redeems it and restores it to better than before. And I just think, you know, that's always been our focus. We love doing this. We love writing. We love having these discussions with you guys. But we love more just making sure that we stay balanced. And so we just are so appreciative of, you know, you guys, you know, continually encouraging